And according to the Tumya, touching a dying or deceased person would make you ceremonially unclean. And so there wasn't a Jewish person that wanted to touch Jesus. There wasn't a Jewish person that during the Passover that would be even allowed to take the cross. By the way, that's why they took even the punishment of Jesus to the Romans. They're the ones who had to make the decision for execution. And so they took this African man. They needed someone that was not Jewish, and they took this African man to carry his cross. Matthew says that they found a man. Luke indicates that Simon was coming out of the country and happened upon the crucifixion. He was not there necessarily to witness Jesus being crucified, but he was passing by as he was coming from the country, and he sees the crowd and he sees what's going on, and the people notice that he is from Africa, that he is not a Jewish man, and because of the ceremonial law, they grab Simon and says, "Hey, you carry the cross." So we know where he was from. We know that he was not at the crucifixion because Jesus was being crucified. He was coming out of the country. He was passing by. And then Mark gives us a new layer of information by giving us his sons' names. His sons' names were Alexander and Rufus. Now, could we just pause and acknowledge that Rufus is kind of a cool name? I think we should bring back Rufus to the pool of names that we name people, not dogs, people. I think Rufus would be fantastic. Now, that's a side note. It's interesting that 3 of the 4 gospel accounts mentions him by name. So we begin to ask ourselves a few questions. Was he known by name? Did they yell out, "Simon, come here. Simon, I want you to carry this cross"? It is very likely that no one at that moment knew his name. No one knew who he was. They just knew that he was from Cyrene. They knew that he wasn't Jewish, and because of the ceremonial law, they needed him to carry the cross of Jesus so not to break that law. 3 of the 4 Gospels, though, mentions him by name. Was he well known as a Jesus follower? I don't think so. In fact, giving what little context we have here, but just making some assumptions by what we know about the situation, he's passing by, he's coming out of the country, and he happens upon the crucifixion of Jesus. Which brings me to my next question: why mention him by name if no one knew him? If no one knew him in that moment, why would the Bible 3 times, 3 of the gospel writers say it was Simon the Cyrenian? Why would they say it was Simon from Cyrene? Why mention him by name if no one knew him? I don't think anyone knew him on the day of the crucifixion. But I want you to realize something, that the Gospels were not written while things were going on. Meaning this, Mark, Matthew, right? They're not sitting there going, okay, and then, okay, what, excuse me, sir, just for the record, what is your name? You that's going to carry the cross? Simon, okay. Where are you from? It's not a newspaper article. They're not out interviewing people. These are men that are recounting things that had happened. And historically, we know that the Gospels range in time periods where they're written, but they were written between 35 and 65 years after Jesus' death. Mark in particular, because we get into a very interesting thing with Mark because he gives us the names of his sons. Mark in particular was written 35 to 40 years after Jesus' death. And so could I just go out on a limb here and say that Simon wasn't a prominent figure then, but he became a prominent figure in the early church? The name recognition is important in the Gospels because the name recognition was who he had become in the early church. People recognized him as, hey, that's Simon the Cyrenian. And people reading would know 35 to 65 years after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus in the early church who Simon was. I'm getting to a point here. So Simon may have not been a prominent figure at that moment when he had carried Jesus' cross, but it's very likely that Simon was one even in the upper room. Simon very well could have been one that was in the upper room praying, part of that 120 waiting for the Spirit to come as we see it in the book of Acts. What about that day, though, changed Simon into a follower of Jesus? You say, well, what makes you think he was a follower of Jesus? I'm going to tell you in a moment, but I think it's pretty evident that at some point, Simon started following Jesus. Simon started, he put his faith in Christ. He believed that Jesus was who he said he was, and that he died, that he was buried, that he rose again the third day according to the scriptures. That is the gospel. And Simon, according to his interaction that he had with Jesus that day, became a Christian. And now, when Mark says it was Simon that carried the cross, the early church would be able to go in 35 to 65 years after the fact. The early church would have gone, oh, Simon. Oh, yeah, he was there. I know who Simon is. The name recognition, again, was who he had become in the church. So what about Simon changed? Go to the book of John with me. John chapter 19. Now, some point to this passage and would go, well, did Simon carry the cross, or did Jesus carry his cross? And I think the answer is yes, both. But here we are in John chapter 19. John gives an account. He doesn't name Simon, but he gives an account of the crucifixion here. Starting in verse number 14, it was preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, shall I crucify your king? And the chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. Then delivered he him, therefore, unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. Verse number 17. And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him, and 2 other with him, on either side one, and Jesus in the midst. We find in John that Jesus, bearing his own cross, went to Golgotha. Now, I'm just simply saying that something about Jesus' interaction with Simon changed Simon's life. He was a bystander. He was coming in out of the country, passing by, And that interaction changed his life. Now, I want to show you one more thing and give an illustration. We'll be done this morning. Turn with me to the book of Romans, would you? The book of Romans. The book of Romans is written or penned by the Apostle Paul, Romans 16. And Romans 16 is pretty much the whole entire chapter. Paul saying, hey, if you see this person, tell them, hey. Kind of like Gomer says, hey. Paul's just saying, hey, tell this person hello, tell this person hello, tell that person hello. And all through Romans 16, he's like, salute this person, tell this person about that I appreciate them, and he's talking all about these people. Romans was written, again, 25 to 27 years after the death of Jesus. So even before the Gospels, by the way, Romans was written. Romans 16 and verse number 13. Salute who? Salute Rufus. Now watch this. He says, Rufus, chosen in the Lord. I don't know if Rufus was born when Simon carried the cross. I don't know what age he would have been if he was born or if he was born after. The fact that it names Alexander and Rufus gives the impression that Rufus may have been the second born. But here we are, Simon, carrying the cross for Jesus, gets saved. And now we have Rufus in Romans 16 that says, hey, tell Rufus hello. Salute Rufus, chosen in the Lord. To my knowledge, this phrase, chosen in the Lord, I don't know of any other person that it speaks of, that Paul speaks of in this way. Chosen in the Lord. Hey, salute Rufus, chosen in the Lord. You know what that means? That Rufus was changed in the church, so much so, had so much impact on Paul, the Apostle Paul, that he writes, salute Rufus, chosen in the Lord. And it can all be traced back to a radical change in the life of Simon, the Cyrenian, who carried the cross for Jesus. Dad, would you come here for a minute? As Dad's coming, I'm going to ask David to come too. Is Arlen in class? Jeffrey, you and Olivia, come here for a second. There's no speaking parts in this illustration. Come. I just want you to stand here against the wall. We're going to play a little game together. All right. Take one step forward if your dad has ever taken you to the park. Take one step forward if your dad has ever taken you on a vacation. Take one step forward if your dad has ever attended a graduation or an awards ceremony. Take one step forward if your dad has ever taken you on a school field trip. Take one step forward if you can remember your dad hugging and kissing you as a child. Take one step forward if your dad has ever prayed for you. Take one step forward if your dad has ever taught you the Bible consistently. Take one step forward if your dad has ever taken you to work with him. Take one step forward if your dad has ever led in family devotions. Take one step forward if your dad has ever corrected you with love. A change in one man's life will push the rest of his family forward for generations to come. Generations to come. Back in January, thanks, Dan. We had planned to go for the men's prayer advance, something we do every year, and there was expected 700 or 800 guys to come that year. I was leading the music for that conference, and we had just unexpected weather. It was unexpected weather for them there in that Roanoke area especially, and where we have the prayer advance is up on a mountain. They call it the Church on the Mount. And so they were having trouble getting the road cleared off, and a lot of you would know Brother Harold. He's our friend from the prayer advances, and he had called me the day before, and he said, "Hey, I don't know if we're going to get this road cleared. Everything's just kind of up in the air right now. Do you think if we have two other venues that you could split the music team and have half over here and half over here and do the conference simultaneously in different locations?" And I thought there's no possible way, but I said, "Of course we can." And so I began to make phone calls and try to get people to come so we could fill those spots for the music team and figure out how to make that happen. And logistically, it was a little bit of a nightmare. And I was striking out. A lot of people couldn't go last minute. And I called my dad, and here's the hook with dads, and any of you know this. You already alluded to it with Brian. All you have to say is, "Dad, I'm in a jam. I'm in trouble. Here's what I need." And I explained to him, and he said, I can be ready in an hour." And he was. He packed his bags. We loaded up, me, Dad, Jeffrey, and we're heading down to try to figure out this mess that we're about to dive into. And the Harold called me back. He said, "Hey, I think we're going to get it cleared. We should be okay." Well, by this time, we're already an hour and a half down the road, and so we're going. Now we're all back in one unit, one place, but we're still going, and we're having a good time. And Dad starts talking. We stop to get something to eat, and one of the best things, no matter what age you are, if you stop to eat with your dad always pays. It's like an unwritten rule. No matter where you are, no matter how old you are, he pays. And so he did, thankfully. And we're on the road, and Dad starts talking about just his upbringing, and shared some things that I knew, shared some things a little bit on a deeper level that I did not know. And for the first time, on that level anyway, something clicked in my head, and I realized that Dad had broken some generational cycles, if I can say it that way, that perpetuated my brother and I, and in return, his grandchildren, and in return, his grandchildren's children into a much better life. Now, I mean that from a physical or financial state. Dad worked, dropped out of school to work. Later in life, he earned the prestigious degree from Addison and Broadus College from the School of Hard Knocks. They awarded him a college degree because he worked himself from a route driver to a route supervisor to a sales rep to a branch manager that managed a few different states. So not only financially, though, but even from a spiritual sense, it was important to him that his family was in church. It was important to him that they were taught the Bible and taught integrity. And so by decisions that were made early on in his life, he took what he didn't have and decided it was going to be different for his kids. And I'm better off for it. And my children are better off for it. And someday my grandchildren will be better off for it. And on it goes because one man had an interaction with Jesus. And it changed his life. Therefore, it changed the life and legacy of an entire, multiple generations to come. This morning, Mother's Day, we're like, oh, moms are awesome, and moms are awesome. Get her flowers, hug your mother, and then sometimes on Father's Day, we're like, step up and be a man, But I just want to remind us this morning that a dad's presence and influence in a family changes generations. Generations. Rufus, man, chosen in the Lord. Rufus, man, when did things change? I don't know. My dad, he was just coming in out of the field. He was passing by. He met this guy. And he come home one day and he said, hey, things are going to be different in my family. Things were different. We started following Jesus. That same guy, man, they killed, but he rose again the third day. And then, man, the day of Pentecost happened and the church began to explode and persecution came after that. And man, it's been a wild ride. But I can tell you one thing. The day my dad met Jesus, it changed our family. And I can tell you, the day my dad met Jesus, it changed our family. What about you? The hard thing about that is Rufus has a choice now. Rufus can become complacent. Rufus, with his own kids, can start to thinking things that Simon thought were really important, a lot less important. And things can fizzle and things can just kind of die off the scene. But one generation to the next, we need Simons and we need Rufus. This morning, whether you're Simon or whether you're Rufus, we have a responsibility and an opportunity to pass down to the next generation something that is powerful, an opportunity that we shouldn't take lightly. So I want to say one more time, Dad, thank you. Dad, thank you. I want to say to you, dads, thank you for the difference you're making in your families. Thank you, grandfathers, for the difference you're making in your families. Thanks for being a dad to people who didn't have a dad. Thank you for what you're doing to impact the generation to come. Let's bow our heads for just a moment. Now, I can tell you this morning, I don't want to miss an opportunity to take what was given to me. I don't want to drop the ball here. Big shoes to fill. Somebody said that this morning. We certainly do have big shoes to fill. And so let's just take a moment to pray. Ask the Lord for His enabling. Ask the Lord to help us. I need His help. Be a good time to pray for your dad. Pray for your husband. Dads, to pray that the Lord would use us to help our families, to provide for them, to give stability, to help. If you're able this morning, stand with me. I just want to pray. We'll be dismissed this morning. Appreciate your attendance, your faithfulness. Appreciate the Lord. Appreciate His Word, His Spirit. You guys think you could get that last verse up of the song that she's playing there? I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ. Anything that's ever done in my home that's any good, it's not because of me, it's because of Jesus. That's just the truth. How deep the Father's love. Just that last verse there, or next